Hello everyone. In today's video, I'm going to be walking the Cross Island Parkway northbound in Queens, New York. We're going to see 3 tourist attractions along the way, which include the Bayside Marina, Fort Totten, and the Throgs Neck Bridge. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoy this video. Hello everyone, Dennis speaking here. Today is Wednesday, July 31st, 2024. I am here at the Cross Island Parkway on 35th Avenue. That's the pedestrian bridge. And I'm going to be taking a 2.5 mile walk northward along the pedestrian path, also known as the Joe Michael Mile, all the way up to Utopia Parkway and 14th Road. So right now we're looking at Little Neck Bay. Across the water here is Douglaston, still part of Queens. And then maybe up north behind it could be the area of Great Neck. Out in the distance there seems to be some buildings over there in the background. That seems to be the city of New Rochelle, which is in Westchester County. Not too far from here, maybe about 15 miles from here. And we can see some boats over here from a pier extending out for the Bayside Marina. I'm going to be walking along that pier if it opens to get a better view of this. I'm doing this walk around 8 o'clock in the morning. We did have some heavy rain around 3 o'clock. It actually woke me up from sleeping, but that's why the ground is a little wet. It's still a bit humid though. And here's a view of the Cross Island Parkway. Northbound is going straight over there. Southbound is where more of the heavy traffic is going towards. So if you ever drive in New York State, you would notice these little green signs mounted on the highway, which are actually not mile markers, but they're called reference markers. And this was initiated in response to the Highway Safety Act of 1966, which was enacted by Congress in an effort to monitor traffic and identify high accident locations. These small green little signs, which are typically measuring 8 inches wide by 10 inches high, and is placed every 1/10 of a mile or 528 feet on state roads, freeways, and parkways. And as you can see over here, there are 3 rows of white numbers. Let's start with the top row. This indicates the route number. If the route is on an interstate highway, the letter I is used as a suffix. So if you're on Interstate 95, you would see the top row being 95I. For the Cross Island Parkway, we see that the route number is 907A. Typically for parkways, you would see the 3rd digit being numbered 7 through 9. So 907 is also used for 3 other parkways comprising the Belt Parkway, which connects Brooklyn and Queens' southern coast. So 907B is the Laurelton Parkway, 907C is the Shore Parkway in Brooklyn and Queens, and 907D is the Southern Parkway. Moving on to the center row, the first digit indicates the New York State DOT region, which has 11 regions. Region 10 is Long Island, and that's marked with the number 0. Region 11 is New York City, and that's marked with the letter X. Within each of these regions, the counties are listed alphabetically and represented by the 2nd digit. So for Long Island and New York City, these are actually combined. So we're going to list all 7 counties from alphabetical order. So we got the Bronx, Kings, which is Brooklyn, Nassau, New York, that's Manhattan, Queens, Richmond, which is Staten Island, and Suffolk. So Queens is number 5 on the list, so we see the 2nd digit being 5. Typically for the 3rd and 4th digits, outside of New York City, this indicates the number of counties the route has entered, starting at 01. So the direction of inventory, or the number you would see the counties increasing, goes from south to north, or northbound, or west to east, or eastbound, as appropriate. Within New York City, a different legend is applied to the 3rd digit. The letter M stands for main line, C for collector or distributor road is used, while the letter R is used for some ramps. So in the 4th digit is still being used for counting the county crossings, starting with number 1. And typically these county crossings increase all the way up to number 4 because probably the longest route, being New York State Route 27, goes through Brooklyn, Queens, Nassau, and Suffolk County. So you don't really need a second digit to count the counties. So in this case, we see that it is number 2. But the Cross Island Parkway is only in Queens. Where do we get 2 from? Well, this is because it's actually connecting a system with the Belt Parkway. And we can tell this by the exit numbers. So the Parkway from the Belt Parkway goes all the way from 1 through 25, ending at the Southern State Parkway and the Cross Island Parkway. And then the Cross Island Parkway picks up on the exit numbers, going all the way to exit 36, directional exits, N or S, which ends at the Whitestone Expressway or the Whitestone Bridge, Interstate 678. So, if we count the Belt and Cross Island Parkways together, the number 2 actually makes sense because we are counting Brooklyn or Kings County, and then we got Queens County. Moving on to the bottom row, the first digit normally represents the control segment, which starts at 1 at the county line or the route's terminus. In New York City, however, the first digit of the bottom row indicates the direction of travel, since the county lines are crossed, yet the route is still in the same city. North, south, east, and west are represented respectively by the numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4. So, 1 in this case represents northbound, as we're traveling here. And then the last 3 digits in the bottom row represent the approximate distance in tenths of a mile from the beginning of the last control segment or county line. Remember, if we include the Belt and Cross Island Parkways together, this basically means that we are 15.3 miles away from the border of Brooklyn and Queens on the Belt Parkway. So this is going to be our first stop here, the Bayside Marina. I haven't been here for about 2 years, so it looks like there's actually construction in this park. So it's interesting to see that it's finally getting upgraded in here. So this is the place that I used to go here for fishing and crab catching. I think I've been doing this with my family since 2008. And I even remember doing a fishing route or catching crabs with the cages. Yeah. It's a very nice spot to do it if you want to consider doing crab catching in New York City. This is one of the places. Although I gotta say that Captree State Park in Long Island is a lot better. So I'll put a link into that video which you can watch right on the upper corner right, or in the link in the description below. So that's the cafe. Go inside. So it looks like they're only doing construction on the perimeter of this. It's gonna be interesting to see what they're going to do next very soon. Maybe they're replacing some water line or something. And they're going to replace that ramp over there that's usually used for boats. And they contain the area with these floating buoys. So the Bayside Marina opens from May 1st through October 31st. There's all the boats over here. It's still a bit misty over here, but we can see a better view of New Rochelle over there. And then that's probably Douglaston, and Great Neck is more on the north, which is in Nassau County, or known as Long Island. So the cafe shop is in the left. the little bait shop over here. I remember this pier used to be under construction for a while, but it looks like it's been fixed, so that's great. So normally we would do crab catching along this area of the pier and fishing. Great spot for fishing. You can also fish on the boat if you want to. Back over there, that is the Throgs Neck Bridge. The area in the north seems to be Fort Totten, which I'll get some type of view of it later. Oh, and it looks like they upgraded the sink. I remember the sink used to be a lot bigger, and it's old. Now they converted what seems to be like a table, and the drain used to be a lot deeper, but now it's a little thinner. And I think people actually have ropes here for crab cages. So if you want to park your car over here, you can go use the lot accessible from the northbound Cross Island Parkway, or you can park in a little neighborhood in the back of Bayside just by going across this bridge. Leads into 28th Avenue. And it's not even a far walk. Actually, looking at it from this view, it looks like they're installing measures for flood protection. That's, I'm guessing, what this wall is in case as sea levels rise due to climate change. And I think, according to the website, the project may be done next year in 2025. So here's the construction over here. Yeah, spring 2025. It seems to be reconstruction due to Hurricane Sandy, and started by Mayor Eric Adams. And here's what the plan looks like it's going to be upgraded. You can pause the video for your liking. So they're going to replace the ramp as well as probably replacing some of the pier as well. It looks cool. I gotta go take a look at this next year. The Cross Island Parkway is a 10.5-mile limited controlled access road spanning from the southern terminus of the Belt Parkway and Southern State Parkway to its northern terminus at Interstate 678, the Whitestone Expressway, and the Whitestone Bridge. Being a parkway, it is limited only to passenger cars only and banning trucks. The reason why is because parkways have very low bridges and the turns could be very sharp, and you have to be very careful when driving on these parkways because they do not follow interstate standards. As you can see over here, the parkway is 3 lanes wide in each direction, but they have no shoulders in place. And passenger car vehicles typically drive pretty fast here. The speed limit on these, what you call freeway segments, they are normally 50 miles an hour. So it's kind of slow, but that's typically what it is for New York City. So this is exit 32 of the Cross Island Parkway for Bell Boulevard. Bell Boulevard is the road parallel to the parkway behind it, as this is an exit for Totten Road. Fort Totten Park is actually a New York City park. So this video is not really going to be focusing on Fort Totten, but I can talk a little bit about the history of it. So Fort Totten was built in 1862 for protecting the East River from combat of a war. It reminds me of similar to Fort McHenry in Baltimore, as it's protecting the Baltimore Harbor, as that is the end of a narrow point in the East River. So the East River, despite having the name river, it's technically not a river because it doesn't connect to a fresh body of water on either side. It is connected to the New York Upper Bay in Manhattan, as well as the Long Island Sound, both saltwater. So the East River is technically a tidal estuary or a strait. So it is meant to protect it during the Civil War back then, and it was used for the United States Army for almost 100 years. So it had important roles in World War I, World War II, even the Cold War. And in 1974, it was deemed to be not fit for the proper training camp for the U.S. Army. So it was then transferred over to the New York City Parks Department, as well as for the U.S. Army Reserve as it stands today. So if you go inside, the park is maintained by the New York City, and you can basically take a tour of some of the fort. Fort Totten was named after someone who had the last name of Totten. I think it was a general who was the premier of engineering the fort in the 19th century. So they renamed it after him. Originally, the land was called Fort at Willets Point, as the Willets family is named for owning the land in the area. Now, I know that whenever we associate Willets Point, we can associate it with Citi Field, but that Willets Point is named after the road, Willets Point Boulevard. And I don't know if it's considered to be called Willets Point, but this was the original Willets Point as I'm standing right here. So it's cool to see that Fort Totten does have some important history of it. So if you want to travel to Fort Totten via the bus, you could take the Q13 or 16 from Flushing. They both have the same destination points at two ends, although both have different routes. So the 13 takes Northern Boulevard and Bell Boulevard to get up here. The Q16 takes one of two routes. So it could either take Utopia Parkway or Francis Woods Boulevard, then go over 29th Avenue, Bayside Avenue to Union Street, and then get to Flushing that way. So interesting. I don't really know that many routes of buses that have a different route number for two of the same destinations without being on the same route. So that's actually quite of a unique quirk of it. So the buses are run by the MTA, which stands for the Metropolitan Transit Authority. And the good thing is that if you're coming from another point in the subway, which you can take the 7 train, either express or local, you can transfer to a bus for free, given that you haven't used your transfer before. Right here, I'm standing on some rock piles. Not sure if this is an official walkway, but I'm going to be very careful when moving here. I'm not going to move any further, but it seems to be where it is. It seems to be that people have written stuff all over these rocks. But here is basically a better view of Fort Totten, as we can see over here. Down over there, that looks like the city of New Rochelle. And then the buildings right in the back seems to be Co-op City, which is in the Bronx. Right over here is the beauty, the Throgs Neck Bridge. And to the left of me is Queens. The Cross Island Parkway is a bit hidden. You can still see some car traffic behind these trees. And yeah, the area in the back is the area of Beechhurst. And the area of Whitestone is right behind it, which is probably not seen behind these tall buildings over here. You can see another bridge in the background. That is the Whitestone Bridge. So the Throgs Neck Bridge was originally built and completed in 1961. This is the last of 3 bridges to currently cross between Queens and the Bronx. The first one being the Triborough Bridge, currently named as the RFK, Robert F. Kennedy Triborough Bridge. And that was built and finished in 1936. And then we have the Whitestone Bridge in the back, which was built and complete in 1939, just in time for the 1939 New York World's Fair. This road over here carries Interstate 295, which spans from the Bronx up in the north at the Cross Bronx Expressway, connecting with infamous Cross Bronx Expressway I-95, which is commonly seeing traffic jams daily. And it also connects with the road connecting to the Whitestone Bridge, Interstate 678, at the Bruckner interchange. I-295 in the Bronx connects the Cross Bronx as well as the Throgs Neck Expressway. You can also reach I-95 northbound via I-695, a very short spur route, less than 2 miles, to connect via the continuation of the Throgs Neck Expressway. Going southbound on the Queens side, we have the Clearview Expressway, named after the Clearview Golf Course, and its terminus is Hillside Avenue, New York State Route 25, which was meant to be extended a lot longer. Originally, Interstate 295 was meant to be I-78, the I-78 in New York, connecting Pennsylvania and New Jersey, which currently ends at the Holland Tunnel in Lower Manhattan, or at Canal Street. And originally, I-78 was meant to continue eastward along either Broome Street or Delancey Street to connect on and ride along the Williamsburg Bridge, which would connect I-278, the Brooklyn-Queens Expressway, and they would build a road through Brooklyn called the Bushwick Expressway, running through the neighborhood of Bushwick, then continuing southeast along which would be built the Cross Brooklyn Expressway. You can still see remnants of the Cross Brooklyn Expressway by walking or driving on Conduit Avenue in Brooklyn. Conduit Avenue in Brooklyn. And then it would continue along the Nassau Expressway, which is today New York State Route 878, which would have been considered a interstate at the time. Currently it's unsigned, but it's still an interstate, and the shortest interstate in the entire country at 0.7 of a mile. Anyway, it would continue north when meeting the Nassau Expressway and cut along Springfield Boulevard and around 212th Street, where it would connect to the current route at Hillside Avenue, New York State Route 25, going northward. And I-78 would have continued all the way until the Bruckner interchange, where current I-295 ends in the Bronx. It was actually signed as I-78 in 1963, but then it was renumbered in 1970 when all of the highway results and it was determined that the expressways would not be built in Brooklyn and in Queens. So that's where it stands today. So speaking more about the bridge is 6 lanes wide, so it's 3 lanes in each direction. And the longest span between the 2 cables, it's a cable style suspension bridge. The length is 2,910 feet, and the length of this entire bridge is a little more than 11,000 feet, and currently experiences traffic levels of, from 2016 levels, roughly about 120,000 vehicles a day. So very busy bridge. Speaking of the other bridges, we can see the Whitestone Bridge over there. That's Interstate 678. That connects between the Bruckner interchange in the Bronx via the Hutchinson River Expressway, connecting Hutchinson River Parkway, and it would connect to the Whitestone Expressway and the Van Wyck Expressway to John F. Kennedy Airport. You can also connect to LaGuardia Airport, which is not too far from here. And that bridge is roughly about 2 miles west of the Throgs Neck Bridge. And the last bridge would be the RFK Bridge, and that carries Interstate 278, connecting the Brooklyn-Queens Expressway and the Bruckner Expressway in the Bronx. It's called the Triborough Bridge because it actually connects 3 boroughs. Additionally, at Manhattan, and technically crosses Manhattan at Randall's and Ward's Island. And then you can connect to Manhattan around 125th Street and the FDR Drive or Harlem River Drive in the neighborhood of, I think it's called East Harlem over there. So very peaceful and very scenic view. The toll on all of these 3 bridges, because they're all the same, these are all run by the MTA. Technically, the TBTA, the Triborough Bridge and Tunnel Authority, being run by MTA Bridges and Tunnels, which is parent company, the MTA, which also controls the New York City subways and the buses throughout the 5 boroughs. So the tolls here with Easy Pass is $6.94, and it has to be a New York State issued Easy Pass, specifically, issued in New York City or New York State. It cannot be any other state's Easy Pass, otherwise you're not going to get that discount. I don't know why that exists, but it's probably a way so the MTA is able to make some money off of you. And they also very strangely charge a mid-fee rate. I think that's roughly about either $9 or $10, and then the cash price is $11.19. And this is going one way. You know, probably the most expensive toll bridge I've seen. It's a Chesapeake Bay Bridge, the Chesapeake Bay Tunnel Bridge in Maryland. But that's a little different because that's a very long bridge. But this got to be like one of the most expensive bridges throughout New York City or throughout the country. The Port Authority bridges have a cash rate of $17 and get it 63 cents. They just added 63 cents due to inflation from last year. It's a little strange, but yeah, but that's only being charged one way in the New York bound direction. So if you split that in half, it's about $8.40. You don't really see that many suspension bridges throughout New York, throughout the country anymore, or throughout the world. It's still being built, but I think a safety engineering standpoint uses more of the cable style bridges, which is more common, and it's more structural, safer than using a suspension bridge, because if you think about it, the cords running along the top of it eventually do snap, so they have thousands upon thousands or even millions upon millions of cords running along the bridge. When you have these cable style bridges, which has a cable each going to a point, you just have to replace just that one cable instead of the cord running along the bridge. So it's better for maintenance and probably reduces the cost a lot. A lot of those cable style bridges are pretty much the same, so I gotta say that these suspension bridges look a lot more beautiful, especially the Brooklyn Bridge connecting Brooklyn and Manhattan. Even the Queensboro and Manhattan bridges look stunning, and the George Washington Bridge. And the Verrazano Bridge, which connects Staten Island and Brooklyn, also carries I-278. So you can see on the sign that it's called the Throgs Neck Bridge, spelled with 1 G. So this is basically an incorrect spelling of Throgs Neck in the Bronx, which spells with 2 G's. And the reason why it's spelled like this is because Robert Moses, who was in charge of the MBTA at the time in the 1960s, wanted to just spell the name of this bridge with 1 G since it's easier to spell. That's very interesting because the Verrazano Bridge was renamed, originally had 1 Z, but it was correctly spelled for 2 Z's in 2020, and we got all these signs replacing the name of it. So the Verrazano Narrows Bridge is named after Giovanni di Verrazzano, who was one of those explorers. I think he's from Italy, I believe, basically exploring the world along with famous explorers like Columbus at the time in the 1500s. Or actually, no, I think Verrazzano was earlier in the 1400s. So, yeah. It's very interesting. And we see the control cities of the Bronx and New England probably getting all those drivers from Long Island who want to go to New England, and this is the route. So when I think of New England, I think about the lobster rolls, especially the food. They all taste great. I love the warm lobster rolls, especially the hot butter ones, Connecticut style they call it, but also the cold lobster rolls, the main style with mayonnaise and coleslaw. They also taste good, and usually a bit cheaper. So yeah, other than that, we have when I think about New England, it's more of the 13 colonies. So these are the older colonies expanding from Connecticut all the way to Maine. So it's New England, and some British, and has high class. New England. So we can see that the pedestrian path basically splits from the Parkway. That ramp, which has all the cars going close to us, leads all the way to the bridge. So that's not the main line road. You can see the division between pedestrians as well as for cyclists. And they recently repainted this, so I like that. It's a very serene walk, especially during the early morning hours. And I like doing it, especially during summertime, because New York City during the summer is known to be very hot and humid, especially with all the surrounding waters. So in the area, so usually we get these nice morning daytime. So I guess that's kind of interesting because it helps me get up early and jump out of bed sometimes because it feels cool instead of suffering in the heat in the afternoon time. And I guess it's better in one sense because you kind of get like a lower risk of getting sunburned. So yeah, the highest time of the day, the greatest point in time for the day for getting sunburned is 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. So hey, if it encouraged me to get out in the morning, start my day right, you know, that's a very interesting lifestyle to have here in New York, especially with rising temperatures. Really isn't much on the underside of the parking lot. We can see the entrance ramps. Exit ramp is in the back, and the Clearview Expressway is the road that's going to the top. Doesn't seem to be that there's a lot under construction right now for this bridge. I think everything seems to be secure and functionally stable as it is maintained by the MTA Bridges and Tunnels Authority. So I remember there was reconstruction maybe within the last 10 years, but I think that construction has concluded and wrapped up not too long ago. This is located on the underside of the Throgs Neck Bridge. Looks like there's a heron over there. Correct me if I'm wrong, and leave in the comments if you know the species of birds. I don't really know animals that well, but it looks like those are Canadian geese in the back, the brown. So, I didn't expect to see this bird here. And the houses behind here seems to be the locale of Beechhurst in Queens. Whitestone is further west of here. So you can see that the path splits here. We're going to be heading on the left path towards the end of our journey, which will be at Utopia Parkway and 14th Road. So this is Dog Run Park. If anyone is interested to see a place where they could have a place in Queens to have a dog run in the park, it would be right here along the Cross Island Parkway near the Throgs Neck Bridge. I like that he just came over to my camera. I guess he was interested. So there's another dog over there that must be taking a bath in the hot, humid day today. I think today's high is somewhere around the 80s or 90s, but humidity makes it feel pretty bad. And it's almost around like 9 o'clock, so yeah, I can't imagine what the afternoon will feel like. So this is the end of the trail of Utopia Parkway and 14th Road, along with the Cross Island Parkway exit ramp, exit 34 for Utopia Parkway. Probably will end the video a little later here, as I want to take a look at the overpass of Utopia Parkway from the Cross Island Parkway to see how beautiful these bridges look. Very common to see the sprinklers on in the morning here. Can't really see near the bridges here through this curve and tall trees. I'm looking through a fence, and this is probably what you think about when you see parkways with cars and vast lanes of traffic. Cool that New York City was able to build this in the 1930s. And so that concludes the walking portion of this tour. So yeah, very nice walk, very quiet, especially in the morning. It's pretty nice in the afternoon when you see people, the crowds go on. But if you want a quiet morning and an early jog, come over here. So yeah, the bus stop over there is the Q16, so walked a considerable amount of distance to come here. And yeah, if you enjoy these tours, please let me know what you think about them in the comments. Consider subscribing to the channel. I do have some content that I plan releasing as I go. And yeah, hit the like button so the YouTube algorithm can consider recommending more of these videos to all the other viewers. So thanks for watching, and have a great day, everyone. Bye bye.